This is a recording of an Instagram talk. Dr. Tathagata Niyogi, the co-founder of Heritage Walk Calcutta and an archaeologist from Exeter University, UK, is in conversation with Dr. Rehan Asad. Here, the journey of Heritage Walk Calcutta has been explored. In addition, he also gave the glimpses of the work of Heritage Walk Calcutta and how to document the heritage in your own backyards.
Has been no, like, although there are several iron smelting and steel making sites that are found, uh, there are no viable study of the community who did it, and we didn't even know the community existed. So that my PhD research was actually trying to find out the sites in the forest in Telangana, and trying to actually work with the community to find out if there are members of the smelting community still exists, and if there is any knowledge that survives, and try to understand these sites from their perspective. So when an archaeologist goes in there and tries to understand these kind of sites, you try to make a very technical analysis and all of that. So generally, most of the time, you do not find people who will be able to give you this insider technical perspectives. So in Telangana, that was my
your explorations, and you did a lot of explorations. You meet a lot of cases, and you find many elders from that community, especially. Can you just tell?
So they were. So the community that is there that produced iron, they're called the Mudda Kamaris.
Muddaka?
Mudda Kamaris. Mudda means ingot.
It's
the iron.
Mudda Kamaris.
And Kamari means obviously the iron workers.
Iron workers.
Now the Mudda Kamari community has been like, it's a very, like, if you look at the social scale, they are very lowest of the lowest rung of the society. Yes. And in these villages, the caste system is very rigid.
Very much prevalent. Yeah. And you also mentioned that their work and their expertise was vanished in 19th century, I think. Mid of the 19th
century. Late 19th, early 20th century. So the last recorded smelting is from the 1940s, but that was because the government wanted to organize a smelt.
And they shifted to work of blacksmiths. Most of them are working as a blacksmith in these days.
And also there's an interesting thing. The Mudda Kamari community realized that they are pretty low, like they are very low in the society. Now, when the census came in 1860s, 70s and 80s and 90s, this community realized that they can actually use the census to consciously social climb and become classified or categorized as blacksmiths. So if you look at the census, reports, you see that the smelting communities throughout South India, they are actually intentionally saying that they are blacksmiths. So that gives them elevation.
Interesting, just to raise their social order. So smelting is in the lower in the grade in our guild system. As they move on, the blacksmiths are on the higher ranks. So just to stratify or just go higher on the stratification of the caste, they move from smelting to blacksmith. So Dr. Tathagata, thank you for sharing this. So from here, as an archaeology doctorate to the foundation of Calcutta Heritage Foundation, and having a very good and professional team members, Chelsea and Anmol Grover and other team members, some of enthusiasts and some of professionals. So can you please share how you came up? You have a larger avenues in the front of you. Usually people go on the traditional way, passing for the really, they go for teaching in academics. Some of them will go in the research, but this is something you choose is really a path like enlightening most of us to see the other roads that can be done after the doctorate. So really some narratives on this.
Thank you. So basically, when I was writing up my PhD, I was also working in Kerala. We were actually digging a site called Pattanam. And what a part of that job and also a part of my education in Exeter entailed that you actually do community outreach. Exactly. So you just don't do your research, but you also go out in the community and explain the research to people. So Chelsea and I thought that why don't we do this, try to do this professionally as well. So we don't want, going to traditional academia may be one option, but why cannot that be the backup option? Exactly. So that's why in 2017, we actually left our jobs in Kerala.
You both were in the academic professions in Kerala?
Yes. So we left our jobs and we came to Calcutta and we started Heritage Walk Calcutta. And we had neither of us had any experience in running a company. We never ran a business. We are not from business families.
Yes.
So that was completely a new path for us. But the idea was to actually create very well researched walking tours, and not just for foreign tourists, not just for high-end visitors to the city, but also mainly for targeting people of the city so that they can get to know their city by themselves.
So this is
through these walks.
So this is how Heritage Walk Calcutta was started in 2017.
In February 2017.
February 2017. But in a very short span, I can say, like after 1 year, people used to know that Heritage Walk Calcutta is doing a lot of work. And your blog, if somebody goes on Heritage Walk Calcutta and read it carefully, so it's not only about the research articles, it's not only about the documentation. You are doing a wide array of jobs. Some of them include the virtual learning workshops also. And something very interesting I found on your blog, and really I appreciate that efforts. You have a complete ethical charter in a professional way that talks about equality, that talk about the consent, that talk about the ethical issues that came in heritage documentation. So we can start our talk really from this point, because this is very relevant. Like people like me and many of us are doing individual efforts in heritage documentation in our backyards, and sometimes we faces ethical issues. So we should know that what are the ethical issues that need to be keep taking your example as a role model, and how to put it in a place to display the proper information.
Sure. So the thing is, first thing that I want to say about in general is that everyone who is like people like you, Dipanjan, Mani, and all over India, all over the world, there are several people who call themselves amateurs, but they're actually doing a very good job.
Thank you for this remark.
And we don't, we sometimes see that there is a sort of sneer from the academic community about the fact that, oh, you don't have that degree, so why are you, how are you saying that you are doing a valuable job? So I want to say that degree doesn't really matter. And what really matters is your interest in doing research and be nuanced about it. So and that is the cornerstone of ethics. That's what we want to say and want to do in practice. That you have to be nuanced about whatever historical research you're doing. Yes, there are a lot of, you can read several sources and then come up with your own hypothesis, keeping in mind that these sources are written by some people. So, and those people will have their own biases. So you have to be aware of all of these and stuff. So looking at things from a wide range of perspectives is important. And I think that's the cornerstone of nuance, of ethics in working and in historical fields, especially now. And the second thing is that when, something that we completely want to focus on is actually how to work with the communities.
Yes.
Because if you go to, if you're working especially for urban heritage, this urban heritage is also a lived heritage. People are also living there, living around it. So if we cannot make history relevant to the current existing community, and if we just say that this place needs to be preserved because of something happened in the past, but it does not really bring any benefit in terms of knowledge or any other sort of benefit to the current community, then those kind of preservation attempts probably is not going to work. So having the community's perspective and having the community's interests and participation actively in preservation of heritage is what is important. And that's why we need to keep the community always in our minds and work with the community rather than working against the community. So there has to be that connection.
So that connection need to be built. The most important point, outreaching the community, is to take the context of community inside always. Somebody who need to own the heritage, who need to connect with the heritage, and that is how we can make a heritage a living example rather than putting it in a basket of a ruined monument. So when we go to the anyone, if somebody, I say that go to the Heritage Walk Calcutta blog, they will find it in the different categories are there in your website. So one is you have a very fine research blogs. So research blogs is a collection of the articles that are contributed by different authors, and it's not only limited to Calcutta. It's sometimes stories related to Taj Mahal, sometimes stories related outside Calcutta. Then you have walking tours. That's I think the active part of Heritage Walk Calcutta. You have conducted like 404 walking tours, I think.
More than that. That has to be updated.
I think that data need to be updated.
Yeah.
So some interesting, I'm coming on the point actually. Some of the interesting talks that are displaying there. One is about Chinatown. I'm always interested from a long time when I'm following you on the Twitter. Your Chinatown, football walks, crime walks. So a little bit about the Chinese community, because you did a lot of work with the Chinese community.
Okay, yeah, that's actually one of our flagship community engagement projects, actually working with the Chinese community. So when we started Heritage Walk Calcutta, we tried to actually explore what the existing literature about Chinese community in Calcutta, and what we generally got were newspaper reports once a year about dragon dances and lion dances during the Chinese New Year, and also occasional blogs. And I must say that the blog of Deepanjan, and we have a friend called Shom, and their blogs are more extensive and more in depth. But most of the blogs have been are very superficial and all that. And so we could not actually find any community connect going on there. So what we did is we tried to work, go into the community, build relationships, friendships. And you need to understand that the Chinese community here has been persecuted during the 1961 war.
Yes,
because they were sent to the prison camp in Deoli and all of that.
And though they are very much Indian now, they are more than 200 years, I think, the history. When first time.
Yes, the Chinese community arrived in Calcutta. The first record we have is from 1779. 1770. 1778.
It's like almost 300 years. More than 3 centuries has been passed. Yes.
It's close to 300 years.
Close to 300 years. Yes.
Yeah, and this is the oldest Chinatown. Calcutta has the oldest Chinatown anywhere in South Asia. And they came here as traders, and then they settled here and all that. So, but we realized that there is a paranoia and trauma about outsiders working with the Chinese community, because people did not know what our intentions was. Because if you look at the movies, if you look at anything that depicts Chinatown, it depicts it as a place of crime and a place of opium. But there is a much deeper aspect of Chinatown beyond opium, beyond crime, and beyond all of this, because people do live there and people do work hard, people do have their businesses and stuff, and they're very entrepreneurial. So we started to create this community connect, and it actually it's still continuing. We are working with the community to find out the history, discover their history, and also because we can do some archival work, we can also provide them whatever we are learning. So it's a sharing that goes on both directions. And the Chinatown Walk is actually, it has come out of those kind of collaborations.
And then most of them are coming from a background that they have a very rich background with the leather work, I think, and they were working with the business of products tanning, some of them from the Chinese.
So the Chinese community in Calcutta has two divisions, and those are mostly based on ethnic lines. The two major divisions, one is the Cantonese and another one are the Hakkas. So the Cantonese arrived in Calcutta from the 1770s, late 1770s, and they initially were they were working as carpenters and all of that. They had their carpentry, they had their ship, they were ships engineers, they were cabinet makers and all of that stuff. But the Cantonese did not generally work in leather. So when the Hakkas arrived, they take up the leather trade, they build tanneries, and they also go towards the food business as well. So most of the Chinese eateries today in Tangra, in New Chinatown of Calcutta, those are mostly Hakka run. Okay. So mainly it was carpentry, it was leather, it was food, and also later there were several Chinese dentists that came in, and then dry cleaners and all of that.
So Chinese community has a strong link, a connected fabric of a culture with the history of the Calcutta. And
very much.
They were like an integral part of that community. And then you conducted some of the crime walks is very interesting, basically. Crime walks and famine walks also sometimes, or the talks in fact. So a little bit about the crime walks.
So So the idea of crime walk came really because in Exeter there is a walk called the Murder and Mayhem Walk, and that's what my walk is called here. And this Murder and Mayhem Walk in Exeter actually looks at crimes from the medieval period, and these are true crimes, and so it goes to the crime sites and it talks about the crime and all of that.
So
and also in London you've seen probably there's Jack the Ripper walks and all of that. Now, Calcutta was also considered to be, apart from this being the second city of empire and all of that, it also had the darker side because it was considered to be the second city of the empire in crime as well.
At that.
So after London.
After London, huh?
In the late 1800s, in the mid 1800s.
Mid 1800s.
So I wanted to create a walk that actually talks about this crime scene, sees a city in a different way, but also crime is not just the act of crime. It also has a lot of social implications around it. Like, why does someone become a criminal? How a criminal is judged in the court, and the way that the person is judged in the court also brings in the contemporary ideas of patriarchy, the ideas of racism, and all of that stuff. So the walk actually incorporates all of that as much as possible, based on some archival research and stuff.
Thank you, Ranganda, for joining in. One of our very
Hi, Ranganda.
And one of our what we say the path bearers, or when we follow whom we follow always in his blogs and in his photographs. So then you conducted a good number of workshops also, and your workshop is just aimed with the objectives to empower the people like me or many of us who are enthusiasts who want to do the work. Just give them a proper sort of training sort of sessions. So can you just please tell our friends that what is the scope of Calcutta Heritage workshops, and what is the models you are using for learning? So
the workshops were we when Heritage Walk Calcutta started, we always knew that we are going to do walks, but also we are going to do workshops because we make sure that our team has early career researchers who are experts in different fields. So, and for a researcher, it's important to actually share the knowledge to the community, because then the community becomes empowered by them. So this is why we do the workshops. Now, the workshops are targeted at anyone who, you don't have to be any expert, you don't have to be anything. These are all introductory 101 workshops where you can learn to record, document your own neighborhoods, your own backyards in proper ways, and how to save that data and how to work with the communities or start working with the communities to make your documentation more fruitful. Because I think there needs to be a sense of the fact that the government is not going to do everything. The government cannot do everything.
Cannot do and don't not doing and cannot do. Both things are important, I think.
Yeah, and the academics are not going to do everything.
Definitely.
So it's our collective heritage, and each and every citizen, each and every person who feels that connection has the right and has the ability to do things themselves. So why don't we provide them with these tools or this skill set, which will enable a lot of people to.
I think this is a point. The more we are able to create a heritage awareness, more we are able to create the play point from where they think that this is a responsibility or this is an importance, and how the locals will connect it with their heritage landmarks. That means they need to own the heritage or own the legacy. That's the most important point. And I saw there is some sort of virtual learning sessions also taking place.
So because of the situation now, we cannot do walks. We cannot keep on our engagement through physical workshop.
Okay.
So what we are doing is we are doing the same workshop that we did with you guys last year.
Okay.
But virtually on Zoom. Obviously, the photography and practical sessions cannot happen.
Not been. So the Panjan sessions is missed.
So but we now have a team member named Shromon, who is an oral historian and an anthropologist. So he is going to take a separate 1-hour anthropology and oral history session. So how to record oral histories, what you should be considering.
Very good. When the next session is going to be conducted, I would love to join that if this.
And we are also keeping in mind, because we have a lot of interest from people from outside India as well. So there's someone from Australia who registered for this session.
That's great. So when it will be announced? You have announced the dates, or it will be announced a little bit.
The current one is already there. It's been announced.
It's been announced. Okay.
Yeah.
So I will.
And then so that next time when we do, we want to keep this in mind, that we want to have it in a sweet spot in terms of the time zones, so that most time zones can come and
that's the point. I think we can come at a point that is appropriate for our Indian participants and participants who want to join it from outside. So during the survey methods, when you talk about what are the ethical points that we need to take care, especially in general, not related to Calcutta only, when we are in the field.
So the main thing is just to keep on asking for permissions about things, because you are going into someone else's space.
So consent is the first point.
Consent is the first and I think the main point. So if you want to take a picture of something, if you want to record something, and there is a person who owns the place, or even a person who is just using it to stay, even
as a tenant, legally
or illegally or illegally. So it's not your job to actually say that you are an illegal person squatting here, because you don't know.
Definitely.
It's still their space.
So that's the point, very important, I think, for all of us. Even if we are going to the encroached place, we know this is encroached, somebody is living there, but we need to communicate with them in a way that consent is the first point. What Dr. Niyogi want to stress at this point, that this is the most important point, because we are not the one who are going to tell them that you are living in an encroached place. So I'm coming and I'm taking a photograph. You have no right to speak.
So basically, and also explaining what you are doing, because what we have seen is, yes, there is a lot of fear about recording and all of that stuff. But if you explain properly, if you actually have that kind of connection, and if you just go and ask for permission, people are normally willing to work with you and give you permission. Probably help you a lot more in terms of exploring and understanding things.
Exactly, like we discussed before. Also, there is a problem with the synagogues when we visit there. The two landmark synagogues of Calcutta, and everybody can not have access. So there is some sort of a special treatment. So this is also an ethical point where we need to consider that we need to interact in a way that bypass channels need to be avoided in the way. So that it will be taken care for that. I just want to stress on one point, that if someone says no, then that's a no. Yeah, that's a no.
Yes, you can try to explain more, but becoming rude is not the way to answer to that.
Yeah, communication is the key. Here, communication is the key. Consent and communication, two important points. And sometimes there are sensitive feelings. Like I remember when we were on the Chitpur Road and Zakaria Market. So I was given a responsibility in a subgroup to take over all of the participants in Nakhoda Mosque. So while we was entering, there was some miscommunication. One of our participants didn't know that when we have to take off the shoes. We explained, but there was some sort of miscommunication. So suddenly we saw that the person who is responsible there, he outbursted on all of us. So we just calm down. We tell him that we know we have to take care. We are putting off our shoes. This is a mosque. But exactly we don't know because some places, Nakhoda Mosque main entrance, there is a very small space. Yeah. So we think that we have to take off the shoes after going inside. So sometimes the fine issues came up and there might be an outburst, but by communication we solved, and then we roam around in each and every area of the mosque. We took the photographs by their permission and they allowed us. So communication is the key, I think. That's the most important point in any heritage exploration.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add on here? Or we'll move to the next point.
I mean, you need to really think about the fact that when you're going out on exploration, you are perceiving your surroundings, but also you are being perceived by others as well.
Definitely.
So the same kind of if you think that the certain place is not safe, then people who are seeing you as a stranger, they might also think that you are some stranger and may not be safe to talk to and all that.
Every community has certain sort of paranoia associated. So sometime if you go in the mosque, there is other sort of paranoia. If you go in, say, temple, there might be other fear. In a synagogue or in a church, they might think in another way. So the point is to communicate and just respect their values. If skull cap is required for entering in a synagogue, I remember Ranganda offered me a skull cap and we both wear a skull cap and then we went inside. So if we go in a mosque, we take off the shoes. If we go in the temple, we do their protocols. So their religious values need to be taken care of while we are working in the field. That's most important point. Dr. Niyogi, something about we want to enlighten our participants on the oral history actually, because oral history is closely linked with heritage documentation. Every heritage has its own stories. And sometimes that are not documented. Most of the time where we are working on the micro heritage, we will find very little documentation. What come up in the shape is the oral history. So how to make a rigor in oral history, because sometimes it has a false and inaccurate information. So being working in a field, how to filter out the process and what's its importance?
So here, I think the first thing is we need to understand that history, any form of history, written down or anything, unless you actually find something which has, I mean, even if you find something that has been written down at that time, you find an old book or something, then any form of history is someone's perspective to it.
Exactly.
So it's not like someone's interpretation of the event, even if it's an eyewitness account.
Yeah, definitely. This
so oral history is also a community's perception of an event.
Thank you.
So that way it's not really any different. So it's oral history helps a community to make sense of their surroundings, to understand their connection with the surroundings. So that's why oral history is very important, because that gives you that kind of community level understanding of why something is important to them, why something is not important to them, why something is loved, why something is reviled.
So that's why it's just a few tips in oral history that are more relevant for the people who came here, just those who are working in the fields. That what things we need to keep in mind?
I think the idea is to keep on going back to the same place several times, so that you can understand and talk to several people to get an understanding of what versions of history exists.
Exactly. This is a very important point you raised, that multiple narratives you collect, so you have going to testify information. This gives a sort of validity to your collection resources. Yes.
Yeah, and also by going back several times, what helps is it helps in making yourself familiar with the people as well.
Yeah.
So for example, when we started when I started my PhD research, no one knew me in the smelting communities, right? So they would just give a very very standard version of their community's history. But as I kept on going back and as the trust increased, we would get much more deeper perspectives, much more actual events and all of that stuff. So I think going back to people several times and gathering several versions and then filtering the information out is very important. And also to keep in mind that there may be different versions of the same event, and that's all valid, because all of that is someone's perspective.
Definitely.
And then you can actually look up the books and archival material and try to tally that with what you have found.
Sort of a
corroborate that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So authenticity can be checked. Exactly. Yeah. Some facts like dates. Sometimes people in oral history talking about 100 years is like something. So 150 saal pehle, like 100 saal pehle. So it's something passed by 2 or 3 generations. It's like 100 years. So sometimes that's very important when you don't have any exact dates.
And the fourth thing that most of us miss is that when you actually have found corroboration or something in the historical data archives or whatever, then go back to the community and tell people that this is what you have found, and to basically let them have that access to information. Whether the community accepts it or not is up to them. You can't do anything about that. But just to provide that lens as well.
Yes.
So going back to the community and saying that this is what you have found in different archives or other sources is also important, because otherwise the community will not have the access to that information as well.
Exactly.
So going back is important.
going back is important. I think many times this need to be testified in a different way, but oral history definitely is one of the rich source which we need when we need to collect the data, because without that we cannot move at some places, because every place we don't have. And Dr. Niyogi says that even the written words are someone's perspective, so we need to research on that, and otherwise it's not easy to segregate both of the things. Now coming back again to your work on Calcutta, so you started and you did a wide range of work from in the walking tours and in creating awareness in blogs from Matia Bruge to Zakaria Street. You have covered different facets of Calcutta. So can you please enlighten a little bit on Matia Bruge, because many people want to connect it with Mani has some question, I think. How do you deal with contentious issues when you do your walks, like the Curzon's plague on the black hole incident? Yes. So it's a very interesting question he asked. Yes.
Shall I answer that first?
Yeah. Okay. Look, answer it. No problem. That's it.
Yeah. So basically in the walks, we try to provide a nuanced understanding. So for black hole incident, I just say that what are the different perspectives of it, and when these perspectives were born. So for example, there's a nationalist perspective to it, there is a British perspective to it, and there's also something like there are several documentary evidence in favor or against it. So what we do is we put all of these out, and we do not force a conclusion.
I think in short, if you can explain black hole, because some of the people maybe didn't aware about it. Mani asked very good questions. So just in a few.
This is going to cause controversy. Okay.
Yeah, but no. We can discuss.
So basically, in 1756, the East India Company and Siraj-ud-Dowlah, Nawab of Bengal, had some disagreements, mostly about taxation, fortification, and all of that. And Siraj-ud-Dowlah attacked Calcutta because he wanted to teach the East India Company a lesson, which needed to be taught, because the governor of Calcutta was not very couth in that sense. So then the Siraj-ud-Dowlah attacks in summer, and the city falls within a couple of days of fighting, and the Fort William was partially damaged during this thing. And then Siraj's generals, something happens within the fort where Siraj's generals were asked originally to treat the prisoners well, because that's what Islam dictates them to do. And so they were doing that, but then there was this Dutch drunk mercenary who ended up shooting one of Siraj's soldiers, and that leads to riots. And then all of these, the Europeans were about, I think 40 of them were put in a small room, a small prison cell, which was already called the Black Hole Prison because that was used by the British to punish their own wayward soldiers.
So they were put inside the same
put inside there, cell. And the next morning it was found that some of them have died out of suffocation.
And it was, remember, the summers, humid
it was very high summer.
Summers, days of Calcutta.
So about 35 to 40 degree heat, so 100 degree Fahrenheit, and very humid. So now remember, East India Company realized that they are not going to be able to take back Calcutta from Siraj. So actually they needed the British Royal Navy support. Now, in order to get the British Royal Navy support, they actually needed to create a sensation out of this. So when Holwell reports it to his superiors, he says that he was in the black hole and about 148 people were put in and 123 people died.
So it was an exaggeration at that time also, just to make
all the documents actually, all the research that has been done, even William Dalrymple had written about this in
Anarchy, yes.
Yes. It seems that probably 43 people were put in and something around 22, 23 people died.
Yeah, but
so something happened, but not in the scale that has been promoted.
But the reports were highly exaggerated.
Yeah. And then when the nationalist history writing starts happening against the British colonialism and all of that, there is a belief that black hole never happened. This was all a propaganda to malign.
Again, another perspective in a different way, but far off from the reality.
Yeah. So what we do in the walks is we present all of these perspectives, and then people can choose what they want to believe, but we also, like, if someone wants to read up more, then we provide readings and all of that. But we do not want to force a conclusion, because if I force a conclusion, then I'm taking a side clearly at that point.
Exactly. So thank you, Dr. Niyogi, and thank you, Mani, for this interesting question. We are coming on the point that you again. I will repeat the question, because you are taking a large array of city with different facets. So Matia Bruce is one facet, Nakhoda Street and Chitpur Road is one facet. The Jewish synagogue and this legacy is other facet, and Chinese community is another facet. So this is an interesting aspect. Every city has their own culture, but Calcutta as a city has an interesting facet that different communities came in, not only from India, different parts of the world. So you will find an interesting Jewish legacy there. This came as a traders. You will find an interesting legacy of Nawab of Awadh, who came there and he was forced to stay there, and definitely he established a small Awadh there. And I met with Suhail when I was walking with Matia Bruj. There was one Rastogi ji Panwala, and he told me that his ancestors came from Lucknow, and still he was speaking a very fluent Awadhi language also. So this is how it connects. So how did you find, can you give to the reader, participants something about Matia Bruj?
So Matia Bruj has always fascinated me, because my father's side of my family actually comes from there. So there's a place called Mudiali in Matia Bruj, where my ancestral, like from the father's side, my ancestral house was. So we used to go there in my childhood and all of that. So I found it really fascinating now, and it's it's a bit shameful that that since there was a Hindu neighborhood and within the Muslim area, there was a lot of paranoia about going out and exploring. But I always loved to explore, and when we started this, this gave us an opportunity to explore more. So we had, at that time, in our early days, we had an intern who worked with us. She's an Islamic art specialist. So her name is Srinanda. So she did research and she created the walk, and while she was doing the research, we had actually gone and explored places related to Wajid Ali Shah, but also places related to indentured laborers and pre-Wajid Ali Shah colonial legacy infrastructure there, legacy there as well. So Matia Bruj is a fascinating place. It's a melting pot in itself. And talking about Awadhi legacy in Calcutta, we just found out last week that our the person we buy mutton from, the family, they came to Calcutta from Lucknow as well, and they still speak very
good Awadhi,
Lucknow, sort of Lucknow Urdu.
And that one guy who is selling the biryani on this Chitpur Road, you see, what's the name? Is a restaurant. I forgot the name of that restaurant. One of the oldest restaurant there, more than 100 years old.
In India.
What's the name?
Yeah.
So they say that they came with Nawab, and they claim that they came with Nawab, and later on they started selling biryani, and now Kheer is also selling with them. So this is considered to be one of the oldest in the Chitpur Road. I think from 1900 it was started. So you can find many flavors.
On the Chitpur one, that's Royal.
Royals, yes, Royals.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Shikendra. Royals, yes, we were there and with Shikendra at Royals. Yes. And I was one who collected the story for Royals. Okay, so Calcutta, you will have a diverse varieties of food. Aloo, yes, potato has interesting stories. They have many perspectives at how potato was added. Thank you, Shikendra, for giving the name Royal India Restaurant. That's one among the oldest. So there are many perspectives that how aloo was added, and did you did some research on this, that how royal biryani, this Awadhi biryani was formed?
No, that's Sohail's expertise.
That's Sohail's expertise. Portuguese bring, or how that penury bring, and how this.
I mean, potatoes. I'm sure was brought by the Portuguese. Yes. And actually, we while helping Deepanjan with one of his articles, I found that the potato was introduced in Bengal probably sometimes in the late 1700s, because we found a document which said that potato has been growing significantly well in Bengal for the last 30 years. So, and that document was from 1820s.
Okay. By the way, hi Priyadarshi, how are you? Few of our old friends, which we found it in Calcutta.
Hello, Priyadarshi and others.
Yeah, they came up here. There is very good point. We'll come back to our educational aspects also. In between, these stories are important to connect with many of our participants. So, very good point I found on your blog is a very upcoming issue. We need to take care of that during the walks. Environmental pledge. You have written the environmental pledge. Mm-hmm. Can you please speak a little bit about its importance during the heritage exploration?
So the biggest problem that we had when we do our walks or do our explorations is exactly the plastic bottle.
Yes, in my hand also. What I do, this is something really a big problem.
Yeah, because you need to drink water.
Yes.
But and especially in summer when you're doing this. So, and we were trying to find a way around it. And I think we found it now because we have this. We have started putting a 10% discount on anyone who pledges to bring 10%. I think so, or 5%, something like that. A percentage off on tickets or participation prices if someone pledges to bring their own water bottle, like reusable water bottle.
That's great. So that's great.
Yeah.
So this is something a very important point. You are taking care for that.
And also we make sure that when we have tea in places which has those clay cups.
Clay.
We don't use plastic pots. Don't even use the paper cups because the paper cups have a very thin plastic lining inside.
This is a wax connected by a plastic. I think that itself. It's a little bit better than the whole plastic, but not completely safe as compared to clay or ceramic cups. So can we go a little bit on your great projects, Mesbari or Mesbari, what we say? And Mesbari projects. I am following it from long time on your Facebook pages, and many times Mesbari projects you shared on Twitter also. So what is exactly this Mesbari project?
So Mesbaris are boarding houses, like simple boarding houses, mostly for bachelors, not just men, men, women, anyone who used to come to Calcutta for education or jobs or whatever.
So this term is not Bengali exactly. This mess is coming from English, I think. Badi is a place where people use.
Badi is the Bangla word. It's that boarding house.
And mess is an English term that connect together as a mess badi.
Yeah.
So what exactly you did in mess badi projects?
So and these mess badis are very prominent in Bengali literature from the 1900s.
Okay.
Because Bomkesh Bakshi, he stays in the mess bari. There are several famous authors who stay in mess baris. Mess baris come up several times in Bengali movies and all of that stuff.
Okay.
So while we talk a lot about mess baris and the mess culture, which is this intellectual culture that goes on in the messes, we have not taken care of the mess baris themselves, like historic boarding houses themselves. So while we filmed, I don't know if you have watched it, but we have a two-part documentary series called the Shutanutri Diaries.
I'm coming on that. I watched that Shutanutri Diaries.
So the first part is on mess baris, and we filmed it in 2017. So when we filmed it, we realized that these messes are in very bad, like they're in a mess, really, like literally, in terrible shape. So what we wanted to do is we went to the West Bengal Heritage Commission, wanting to see if they will, if they can do a blue plaque project where they can at least put blue plaques on these important historic boarding houses. And what we got to know is that the Heritage Commission told us, Shubha Prasanna, who is the chairman of Heritage Commission, he told us that it will be great if we can provide them a list of these. And what we realized is that why don't we just create a project out of it and give more than a list, give some history and mapping and stuff. So this is when our current team member Anmol, who is a conservation architect, she joined, and then there are other two members who joined the Mesbari project, Borshona and Dipanita. They're all JU students. So they joined and they recorded the Mesbaris as they could, based on old street directories and all of that. So several of these buildings have now fallen. Several of these buildings are going to be taken down because they're in terrible shape. So they recorded, they traced all these buildings, they recorded them, and we compiled a report out of them, and we gave them to the Heritage Commission. So that was the Mesbari project.
So at least,
so the Heritage Commission has at least a list of the Mesbaris, their exact coordinates, a condition assessment, and their history. So if they want to do something, then they can do it.
So at least this is a great work, I could say like that, because what you did, at least a documentation and reaching it to the real stakeholders, and at least they have certain awareness, and if at least they can label it and enlist it, that will be a great point at this stage.
Yeah.
So what because this was my next question, and it came in like this. Satunati Diaries, where we watch it, is really a documentary sessions, very nicely made, and it is giving you a lot of interest to the audiences, those who watched it. I don't know how many people have watched it, those who are here with us. So little bit about this Satunati Diaries. What exactly?
So Sutanuti is a neighborhood in North Calcutta, and it's considered to be the traditional part of Calcutta. Just a very quick history of it.
Okay.
So that's why we named this the documentary series Sutanuti Diaries, and we did it with Joydeep, who and his team who work in the local film industry and all of that.
Okay.
So, and we also, like, between Joydeep and us, we self-funded the entire project. Our original plan was to make a series of like a first season of 10 episodes where we talk about interesting aspects of Calcutta's history, but for a general audience, and also not in a typical documentary mode, but more engaging, more in like, so that we can reach out to the general audience better. So Ankita, who's the host of all of these, she did a brilliant job doing that. So we did 2 episodes, and then we ran out of money because we had just started up at that time.
Yes, at that time. So are you going to continue it?
When we have money, we will definitely, because we have been bootstrapping. We did not receive any loans or external fundings till this point. So definitely, in the future, when we can, we will want to continue that. But we made 2 episodes. First one is the Mesbari. Second one was Chinatown. So
for all the audiences or all the participants, Heritage Walk Calcutta also had their YouTube channel, where you can find all these stuff from their videos and projects. And what is this backyard stories? This is sounds very interesting. Without any budget, without any big tools, you can use your camera, you can use your mobile simply, and you can document some important piece of heritage. This is where I find it very interesting, really, these backyard stories.
So backyard histories actually started when we because I realized that writing blogs are fine, but there are things where, like, sometimes people will probably be more keen on seeing visuals and learning about things.
Exactly.
And there are very important, interesting tidbits of history in your own backyards, in all of our backyards.
Exactly.
So backyard history is just something through which we want to explore our backyards, these like street histories, something that's actually Shoham, if he's listening, he's doing it very well in Bangla at this time during the lockdown. So he's writing daily the history of street names and all that. So the video, doing it on video for me was the fact that we can probably reach more people and also find out very mundane, very small scale histories which we would not find in your books and stuff. But it's also important to talk about. And you don't need any sophisticated gadgets for that. You can just do it with what you have and in a very low budget mode, but reach out to a lot of people with that.
So that's a point that Shoham, we need to connect. Money raised a point. So this is a point that visuals are also something very important. We do write a lot of blogs, but sometimes the video representation, and though it needs a technological help, but with the simple devices, simple mobile, simple camera, we can do a sort of exercise in our neighborhood. All the heritage enthusiasts, those who want to do that, they can do these sort of things. And simply putting it on your YouTube, you can reach to the wider audiences, and sometimes it gives a lot of good connects also. Those people who are connected with these places, living in the other side of the world, they will find nostalgic when they saw there. Sometime when I wrote on Pilibhit, people came from different places and our ancestors live and they used to got it connected. Okay. There is another project about I think colonial legacy and heritage policy. What is this?
So Okay, this came out from the Mesbury project as well. So when we were doing the Mesbury project, the project interns realized that a lot of people who are living in these old houses, they do not have any much idea of how the heritage laws work and where they come from, what rights they have, what they can do with their properties, what they cannot do with their properties, and all of that. So there's a huge disconnect between the law, which is there, which is enshrined, but there is no outreach about the law to actual stakeholders, who are the property owners. So colonial heritage and the legal legacy of it traces the origins of these laws, heritage legislations, from the colonial times. And also another end product of this will be to create handbooks written in Bengali, Hindi, English,
multilingual,
and probably with drawings and illustrations and all of that, and give these handbooks to these heritage building, the old building owners, written in a non-legal language, just explaining what the law says, what they can do with their property, what they cannot do with their property, and what rights they have. Because when they generally receive a letter from the KMC, the municipality, about their property being declared as heritage, often they have no idea that their property was even surveyed by the heritage body. And the letter basically says what you cannot do, and it looks very scary. But the actual law actually empowers the owners to do a lot of things as well. So that and the letter that they get is not normally it's not written there. So the major end product of this project is probably going to be a handbook and also a website where we list out all these laws, but in mundane terms, not in legal terms.
So again, this is sort of awareness campaign.
Yeah.
That will bring out more technical terms in a simpler language, and those interns or explorers or the walk participants, they need to know about it. They can have access about that law book. Yeah. I think that's really a good way of educating.
Thank you. And another aspect of this is that we want to make policy suggestions. I don't know if anyone will listen to us, but at least we can shout.
Again, this is an important point. You think that these colonial legacy is reflected in everywhere, our education culture, our teaching and learning culture, and same is reflected in heritage and all these things. So do you think that these need to be revised, reviewed, and changed?
Yeah, I mean, our heritage laws are archaic. Even the most recent of the Antiquities Act that we have. Mm-hmm. So even the most recent of the Antiquities Act actually has it has rehashed the older acts, maybe added one or two clauses to it. That's all. So I think we need to upgrade ourselves, and we need to think by ourselves and think in a more cutting-edge, modern way, and write new laws about heritage and repurposing of heritage, and working with the community members and property owners and all of that, and taking their inputs and rewrite the laws. So I think it's high time that we do that. And another aspect of this project is actually to draft some of these suggestions and give it to the central government and the state government bodies. I know that we are probably not going to be listened to, but we can just do that much. We can just knock on their doors. So yes, that's what we're trying to do.
It's at least creating awareness and at least reaching to the real stakeholders.
I think Money has a question.
Yeah, money is definitely always come in the questions, and I hope all the best for your organization, doing a great job, and it will continue like this. So when we are going to Calcutta, it has many things that Calcutta pioneered in our modern system. And one of things that most of the people are aware about it's in the medical education, one of the oldest medical schools in India. Now we have, I think, more than 500 Indian medical schools all across the country. So the oldest medical college or a medical school, we say at some places, is from Calcutta. And it has a very rich history, and there is a lot of Desi Indians also. Initially they were like demonstrators, and some of them instructors. They are not at positions, but later on some of them were the pioneer from Indian community. So any idea about doing work in this field, also recording their archives and doing any project?
So Chelsea has been working on something for the last year on sciences and medical education and all of that. Mm-hmm. Now, we would like to collaborate and access and look into the archives, but then to access the archives, there's a huge problem is red tape.
Definitely.
And also, like, there is, as a like, we are billed and seen generally, and we are even registered as a tour company. Mm-hmm. That's what our trade license says.
Yes.
So here there is a huge amount of red tape, which if you want to go in the archives, that you need to have that academic stamp in you to access archives. So, I mean, it has been a nightmare actually to be able to access several archives here. And Mani asked a question about red tape. So this is the biggest red tape that we had faced.
Yes.
Ability to access archives, and that goes on that's also true for the medical archives in the city. That why a tour company
needs to do this. And okay, that's the point.
And if you're an academic, then where is your stamp? Like, where do you teach?
Yes.
So that.
Which hat you are wearing? Really, this is a problem in our system. Which hat? Things are not open to everyone. Even I think nobody can have access to roam around the medical college, old corridors or the oldest building, whatever in the college street it is there. It's not, other than you have an appointment, you cannot go inside and you can explore the corners. I think it's not allowed.
I mean, you can explore the outside. But in the buildings, I think it's because of the security and health and safety issues and all
so
that.
You cannot roam around like that. You need some special permissions for that. Okay. Now coming to our second point, that any tips, any advices, any do's for our heritage enthusiasts who are recording the heritage and the streets. So you want to say something for them in the simple words that.
Well, just go out and keep on recording, I think, and also, like, work with the community. That's the only way we can do good work.
So the recording is one thing, and then sharing is other thing. So you can use multiple tools, the Instagram, social media tools, Twitter. Even you can make your websites, and you can put a short articles or short write-ups. And sometimes you can reach to the wider stakeholders if you think it is important, and you can do that. And now, any questions from our audiences? Or friends, any questions you want to ask from Dr. Tathagata, especially related to heritage documentation, or anything else you can ask related to the field, especially, or if anything you want to know about Heritage Walk Calcutta? Yes. You can reflect on this question. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we would love to do that. We would love to, but we actually need more to train more people and have more team members, so that we can actually have people dedicatedly focusing on all of like individual areas.
Mani has a question. Is there any memory of cannon casting among the smelting communities?
Cannon casting, I think, I didn't find any, but I think it was a very specialized group of people who casted cannons. And with the death of that craft, like with the coming of industries and cast iron and all of that, that has been lost since at least the late 1800s.
There is question Barakpur. Tabish is asking a question on Barakpur. Can you just give some enlighten us?
I mean, Barakpur would like to, like, is the question about, like, we like, if we would like to do something there? We would of course like to. But then most of Barakpur is in the army area, cantonment area, so we have to sort out permissions and all of that. So that again takes a lot of red tapes and a lot of time.
So again, Fort William cannot be visited by anyone because this is again in the. I think.
I mean, you can if you have permission, but running tours there regularly but they have their own tours. They run their own walking tours in Fort William.
They have walking tours in Fort William?
Yeah.
So we can go by through these walking tours.
Yeah.
And then same is with the place, I think, where Wajidali Shah was stayed for some time. It's under railways, I think.
The BNR, yeah. BNR, but BNR is comparatively easier to go in and explore. But Fort William, like any army area, cantonment is more difficult. So that's the thing with Barakpur and Fort William.
So some important points I missed to ask. We can, in concluding point, we can think about it. You have also outreached outside Calcutta, and I saw that you did a small project with Sri Lanka, I think, for some heritage point of view, and also you're asking a question that thinking about some other cities. You put a choices. So what's the plan for outreaching to the other cities? It's like more collaborative or giving a wider role.
So the thing with Sri Lanka, like the Sri Lanka project is actually a project with University of Exeter, where we had an incubation program in Calcutta. So there were 3 participants from Sri Lanka. So 1 from Colombo, 2 from Jaffna. Then we had 1 participant from Calcutta and 1 participant from Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand. Sorry, and
Uttarakhand.
And yeah, and so we trained them and 1 person from England, from Exeter itself. And the idea was and they're all academics. So the idea was to train them and maybe show them if this can be an alternative career, entrepreneurship in this way, through sharing knowledge and all that could be an alternative career. And so we are very thankful that the person in Sri Lanka, Austin, he's an architect. And he started his own walking tours in Jaffna after the project. So after the training program, and then we have someone called the person from Calcutta, Aishani. She also started her small traditional textile, very small startup called Musafiran. So you can see her Facebook
Musafiran,
page.
Yes.
Yeah. So she also started something, and then. So yeah, the idea of the project was to incubate or instill some idea about entrepreneurship and ethics and all of that. So that's what we did.
Chandan Nagar. Tabish asked about Chandan Nagar was a French colony surrounded with a British area. It still have a lot of French architecture there.
Some, yes, mostly around the Strand. Chandanagar Strand, but not a lot, because Chandanagar also has and is seeing rapid urbanization. By urbanization, I mean modernization. So there are flats coming up, housing complexes coming up, and all of that. So that is happening at the expenses of the old buildings. So yeah, some still exists, but much of it is gone.
One participants ask about Howrah. They say that it also has a very rich heritage and legacy. Can we have something more details on that Howrah heritage? Yes, again that is repeated.
So Howrah side actually is much older than Calcutta is. So there was a settlement there called Betor, which was one of the major trade hubs for the Europeans and in general before even before Calcutta was built, because that side of the river, the west bank of the river, is much higher than the east bank of the river. So east bank of the river where Calcutta is located, it was all swampy, and there were a lot of canals and all of that connecting to the saltwater lakes. It was not really livable on this side. So Howrah side and Chandanagar side, that all of that is in the west bank, and because those were higher, there were several thriving settlements, business centers, and all of that stuff in the 1600s.
Okay, our friend Khalid Bhai also joined from Oman. If you have any question, because we have just concluded, so any question related to heritage of Calcutta or in general about heritage documentation, that is a larger point of our talk, that not related to Calcutta only. Any question related to heritage documentation, what we can do, any tips, any advice from Dr. Tathagata. So he is very happy to answer that. And otherwise, I have also few of the questions with him. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Tathagata, there is one very old, I think oldest Zoroastrian temple, and it is in very bad shape. Dr. Ranganda took me at that place. We just photographed some of the pieces there, and he showed me some of the remnants. And it is belonging to one of the oldest Parsi community of the city, when I think late 18th century, I think. When they came in, and that was very mighty building, but now heavily encroached, in very bad condition, just behind the synagogue from one of the lanes.
It's in the old Parsi church, the synagogue.
Yes.
Yeah, it was built in early 1800s.
Early 1800s, not late.
Yeah. and then it was abandoned because the family who built it and who were the community leaders, they left. So, and there were factional like divisions between the Parsi community in Calcutta. So because one of the major factions left, that temple started falling into disuse because no one used that, and even the fire of that temple was taken away by land. I think to somewhere where they went. I think they went to Surat, probably.
Okay, Khalid Bhai is asking, any recent book or a work on the heritage of Kolkata has been published? If somebody outside from Calcutta want to know about the heritage, is there any work you would like to advise? Any book?
So, book on heritage, there is. Oh God, there's a very good book called Epic City, which is not necessarily on heritage, but it's about. It's a memoir on Calcutta, and I really like that one. It's very well written, so you can look at that.
Can you repeat it? Because I missed the name. I think I will write it.
The Epic City.
Okay, Epic City.
Yeah.
Okay. He's also asking about Madrasa Alia. Is there any walks or any tours or any exploration for Madrasa Alia?
Not at this point. We need someone who is expert in Islamic studies and Islamic culture to do that, because we only have tours where someone's expertise is.
Because
so we don't want to.
I think on Chitpur Road we explored 2 of 3 heritage monuments when we were in the workshop. I can share with you, Khalid Bhai. Other than Nakhoda Mosque, there is very old mosque, much older than Nakhoda Mosque, and there's a small madrasa associated with. I think it was built in 1890s when this came up, and this building an entire area, and we walk all around, and they showed. So if somebody can share the archives of Madrasa Alia and volunteer to do that, I think they can connect and they can do. If you have any volunteer, I think that would be easy to do that.
So Mani is asking about Anthony Ferengi.
Okay.
So Anthony Ferengi, we don't have any walks at this point, but Chelsea is working on one, which will pass by the Ferengi Kalibari. But it's a walk on Victoria and Calcutta, so that's much later than him. And even we don't really know if Anthony Ferengi did build Ferengi Kalibari or not. I really like the movie with Uttam Kumar in it, but finding a historical Anthony Ferengi has been very difficult because of the lack of documents.
I think, Dr. Tathagata, this Calcutta has an old history of laborers and immigrants coming from different places of India. So UP Walas also have. Asif has conducted some walks. Okay. Asif Delvi. So this old connection of UP Walas is widely respected on the oldest road, Chitpur Road, where you see the Sufias is there. Sufia also have a connection from UP. They came from I think Barabanki or some very close by place or a town from Lucknow. Royal Kitchen also. So amazingly, I found one from our area, Muradabad shop. This you also pictured that, and when we were there, that shop unfortunately was closed, so we are not able to collect oral history from him.
So this is the perfume shop,
shops,
right?
Okay, I think it was open in early 1900s. I think the board was quite old, so it was a perfume shop. So the Itr or Atur, that is a traditional perfume. I think they're the traditional perfume sellers. So UP Walas has a lot of businessmen also came up with the immigrants. I think in Calcutta.
Yeah, Calcutta has been a city of immigrants, and it has been a city of multiple languages and multiple cultures and multiple food traditions from the very beginning, because it started thriving as a British city. People from different parts of India came there to earn a living. So it was never purely a Bengali city per se.
Yeah, definitely, it's a mixed. And also there is a lot of heritage in the neighborhood of Calcutta. I think it needs a lot of resources and work where in future you can do a lot of work. And even going in other places of Afghans and Kabuli Walas. Really, I first time came to know about this. Tabish is asking
there have been
Kabuli Walas.
Afghans, Kabuli Walas used to come very frequently, and I think they had they would stay near what is now Park Circus.
Okay.
And that area, the Karaya Road area and all of that. But again, now there are almost no Kabuliwalas per se.
So they came for the business point of view, or just they came for visitors, or they are visitors for some time?
I mean, some of them were visitors, but mostly they would come for business. Okay, so itinerant business communities.
Okay. So I think we have covered a lot and lot of glimpses from Dr. Tathagata about the heritage documentation and in fact his journey of Calcutta Heritage Walk. And we have covered all the questions also that came up in between. I think really thankful for his great time and great discussion.
Thank you for inviting.
And no. And again, if you are bored during this session and you want to know some very good stories about lesser known stories, Tathagata has started a podcast that is present on YouTube, Stupid History Podcast.
Yeah.
So Tintin
it's
is
also,
there.
It's also on Spotify and Podbean. So
yeah, so you can really enjoy that Stupid History Podcast. Go just on the YouTube channel of Heritage Walk Calcutta and you can find the latest episode. Till now, 4 episodes have came. I really enjoyed.
One is coming on Saturday.
Okay, really. Then there will be the 5 very lesser known stories, well explained, and really you will enjoy this with in the time of lockdown. Thank you. Have a nice and a safe.
Thank you.
Stay at their homes.
Stay safe, everyone. Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.